Hey all, so war's back, and that means more of these videos. Hope you guys enjoy these, because although there is some repetition in my paths, I really do enjoy war. It's the part of this game that keeps me most engaged. So here, I have said before, I consider this first node the easier of the three, or the easiest of the three Power Strike Fury nodes, and that's because it is significantly easier to throw your specials more often because you are just able to push the opponent to theirs. Now, I have not handled this super well so far, honestly, and that's the first time in a long time that I can remember CGR dexing against me and thus getting to his fifth curse. So I just backed off while I had that power lock on me, because it could have been really bad if I had sent him over a bar of power while he had that active. But basically what we're doing here is we're making sure to try and balance how many lights we use, to use the mediums, to use our first medium to move into a heavy, have our second combo use both mediums, start and end in a medium, and that way we have one medium left for the combo that's probably going to push him over the bar. Now there things got a little different because I was able to actually cheese it a bit with Doom's Power Steel, bring him back under a bar and then over. If you see an opportunity for that, I highly recommend it. Warlock will sometimes do the same thing on these kinds of nodes with Power Struggle, and it definitely makes the fight easier. But as long as you just play around the node and count your inputs, you don't necessarily need it. This one is definitely the hardest of my three fights because I can't safely throw my specials or use my heavies to help play the node properly while Doom has his aura of Hazareth. But I need to throw them because otherwise the block damage is going to get difficult. So what we're going to try and do is, since we're probably not going to be able to push him to his L2, although that'd be nice, what we're going to try and do here is make sure we have some hits in the tank, and then just back off until the aura has little enough left that it's safe to throw that special. He does have two Furies on him, and with Doom's native block penetration, this fight gets kind of annoying. But we are able to manage these things. See, now I just have to use a light there because it was the only thing that was safe to use. Then I go for a heavy because I wasn't comfortably at a bar yet. And then I realize he's low enough I can just finish it here. So you have to play around the aura. Remember that it's safe to throw a heavy or an L1 while the aura is up, as long as it is gone before the end of the heavy or L1 animation. That annoying block and unstoppable thing he does only applies to the final hit. So next up we have this Eye Hulk, who seems to be a pretty common counter here, but I gotta admit I'm not really sure why. I guess when I've seen some people use Warlock, and I guess he can be tricky if you're using too many heavies or something, or that... I don't know. Honestly, I probably should have some insight on that, but given how easy he's been for me with Killmonger, I just don't fully get it. Because as you can see, I'm just running through the motions here. I make sure to throw a heavy, I throw an attack that has, that starts and ends in a medium, I make sure that I still have one medium left. Yeah, I mean, I'm really not doing anything special here. I did back off on that one because I wanted to make sure that I didn't push him to his L2, not because it's dangerous, but just because it's more trouble to deal with and I wouldn't necessarily get the True Strike, and the True Strike is allowing me to ignore his armor, which is pretty helpful because this guy can have a fair amount of health. As you can see, he's almost down and we're just barely over a minute, so it's not like I'm worried about timing out or anything. But the longer this fight goes, the more opportunities there are for small mistakes where they do build some Furies, and then if you make a real mistake and get hit, it gets more dangerous. So I like keeping the True Strike and the Reverb up when I can, that's why I'm baiting the L1. But there's just not a lot to this. Like I said, you just play the node and he goes down fine. Well under 2 minutes, even with him actually regenning, because I'm not sure I'm running a point in assassin right now, or it just may not have turned it off, right? Okay, so if you are a returning viewer of mine, you have definitely seen this fight before, but this one was a little tricky. I suspect he was actually trying to kill me, funnily enough. I talked a little bit in my recent Killmonger video, which I'll go ahead and link up top here, but I talked recently in my guide for Killmonger about how his synergy with Human Torch is helpful for him because it lets him land more bleeds and build to those big L3s faster. I also kind of just made a throwaway comment about how it can help Torch in certain situations if you need to just throw away the L2. I don't normally find myself in those situations. As you can see here, we're just playing carefully, 3-hit combos to minimize how much power he gains. I'm also running maxed Petrify, so he is gaining less power from me hitting him as long as he's stunned while I'm landing those. That's pretty helpful. But as anyone who's fought Sasquatch a few times might suspect, he's about to go into Wrath of Tanarak. And that means that we are going to back off a little bit, because he's not going to be losing any power from those specials. I do have my L2, that was very important to me, but I didn't feel like I could risk waiting for the proper window for him to be completely done with that unstoppable so it would land. So I threw it into his block, and because of the Killmonger synergy, it gave us that guaranteed miss and allowed me to pull out safely. And then, as I've talked about before, there is a timing on his heavy, even when it's unstoppable, where you can safely hit him at the end of that. Made sure to do that, and the fight was clearly over. I've taken that fight over a dozen times now. Basically, as long as you hold on to your specials for when you need them, and don't panic while he's in Wrath of Tanarak, and make sure you use the pre-fight, it's pretty easy. So Spider-Gwen, we can't stun her, even when the stunning reflection or the window of opportunity is down. We still don't want to stun her because we would take all the damage from hitting her. So we're just baiting heavies. Killmonger's got decent block proficiency and solid armor values. We're not going to take too much damage from blocking. But that's all we needed, was to push her to her first special one, get that true strike up, and now this fight is basically over, because I can actually finish my combos, keep the tempo up, and I'm using Counterpunch to get easy openings in between her throwing her specials. As you can see, that was a rank 3 Spider-Gwen. That took less than 50 seconds, even without paying attention at all to whether reverb was actually up all the time. And even with that slow start where we were baiting out heavies and shortening our combos to make sure the evades didn't punish us. It's class disadvantage and she's squishy, but yeah, that's about as good as that goes. So here, this one has empowered immunity. Now, Doom is not going to take any damage from Korg's Thorns, but he is going to try to inflict that shock debuff on his mediums. And you could try and play around that by getting fancy with where you're throwing your lights. But I decided that I was just going to use it to my advantage to try and push him to more L2s than L1s. Now there I did make a mistake. He threw a full 5-hit block into my combo. I should have responded. I wasn't super confident, and so I held on to it rather than going for the punish late and possibly getting parried, because that could have hurt. So like I said, we're taking advantage of that empowered immunity to push him to his L2. It's okay that he has those 6 excitement charges. I forget what they're called. His next L1 will be unblockable, but that's why I shortened my combo, because I know that using a medium, light, 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 medium combo will try to apply 2 shocks and therefore easily push him up over his L2. Now, what I probably could have done there was mediumed again and sent him red and then thrown my L1 to get the L2 immediately. It's honestly what I should have done, but I wasn't 100% sure that I wouldn't go orange myself. and I really did not want to have him red and accidentally throw an L2 into him instead of an L1, so I played it a little slower. Ended up with me making the additional mistake of throwing the L2 while he had those rock stacks up, so he just purified the incinerates. But then I did what I should have done the first time, pushed him red while I had an L1, stole the power, had my L2 where he had no rock stacks, and finished the fight easily. Took some block damage from baiting heavies, but Doom can take quite a bit of block damage. Easy fight. So this next one, I hadn't fought Airwalker here yet. I wasn't really worried about him, but I also didn't want to underestimate it. I tend to play significantly more safe than I need to the first time I take a new fight. So I do not need to heal Doom. If you've taken this fight with Doom before, you probably know that. But I go ahead and I heal him. I use an invulnerability because now with the new changes to the loyalty store, I know that I can afford to burn one every 3 days. And we're just going to play this super safe. I mean, my goal is to eventually get into the Doom cycle. But the most important thing is just to get my L1 up first so that I have control over the fight. We are blocking, parrying if possible, but if I don't get the timing perfectly right, then we are blocking those L1s, because that means fewer dark tides, and therefore our block proficiency during specials doesn't go down. Noticed I backed off there instead of finishing the combo because we were both not red yet. And then when he came in and hit me, Kinetic Transference gave him his special 3, but it also gave me the opening to push to mine. Now we're mostly into the Doom cycle. I had a little bit more power than I anticipated there. That was my fault. So I threw the L1 a little early, but that's okay because the important thing was just keeping him under control. We already had him more than half down. And then I just threw a couple extra specials before getting to my Fury boosted L2, and that was a piece of cake. So I also took Mr. Fantastic on node 55, the Limber Brute Force Mini. As you can see, it failed to record. Kind of bummed about that because it was a particularly good one, but you've also seen that fight before, at least from me. So, not a big deal. I believe we did end up losing this war. You know, First War jitters happen, but that's not really an excuse because clearly the alliance we faced had fewer of them than we did. We're not super pleased about it, but we have some things to work on, and we'll get it fixed. So, let me know how, your first war went. Are you guys pushing for the big rewards? Are you calming down? I know there's been a lot of fatigue around war, and the map getting easier, which means every death actually matters more, isn't helping anything. But yeah, let me know how your first war went, and I'll catch y'all next time. Take care.